Bounty Hunters. Life on the blockchain.
Is that an intro or is that an intro? All right.
That was
I am
sick.
here. I'm here with Mr. 100proof, the famed bounty hunter from down under. Welcome, sir.
Good to be here. Glad. Thanks for having me.
No problem, man. Your accent gives you away. People are going to say New Zealand or Oz, so hope I didn't dox you.
There's 25 million of us. It'll be all right.
I think it'll be good. Yeah. So thanks for coming on, man. You know, I think you're definitely more well known in this space since. I mean, your Kyber bug was 2023. Am I right? Mid 2023.
Right. Yeah.
And I would say that I think that's where I heard about you because we had been chatting, and I looked through our DMs, and you sent me some questions on my bug, and then I kind of gave you some feedback, and then I think you hit notional though, right, in 2022. That was before Kyber?
Yeah, that's right. September 2022.
Okay. And then, yeah, you really blew up with, did you do a write-up on Kyber?
I did, yeah. That's probably the only really extensive write-up I've actually done, even though I should get around to writing some other things up.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it was on your site. Yeah, that blew you up. That gave you Twitter Bug Bounty Hall of Fame. and it was like, I don't know what the bounty was, like a mil, if I remember correctly. Am I right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'd also say that really it was Andy Lee's interviews that also made me pretty well known. And, you know, it is what it is. I didn't think about it too much. There's definitely, I guess, some downsides to being well known, but I feel like over the next couple of years, I'm going to self-dox myself anyway, because I think I could probably get away with using my real name as some of the big names in the auditing sphere do, like, you know, Gerard and Christoph, and some others as well.
Pashoff, yeah. To me, I just think I don't see an upside to doing that. I think about that and I think, well, why? Like, what is in it for me? And my brand is this Chad head that people ping me and give me jobs, or I look at things and find bugs. And if I came out with my identity, people would just tie that to whatever my background is and this and that. And none of that matters because I love this meritocracy that we operate in. So why would you consider doxing yourself? I'm curious.
Yeah, that's a good point. I guess mainly to show that I have nothing to hide. So that'd be something about it. But I think that'd really be the only advantage because I'd still be using the 100proof brand. That's the name everybody knows me under.
Yeah.
It's a good point that you bring up there about there not being much of an upside. So
because I think
probably be the only reason.
Yeah, if you build this Anon brand, this 100proof or pseudo Anon, I think it's pretty cool because people see it. They kind of know who you are on Twitter and they interact with you. Word gets around. You get a following, and then, you know, if you want to be booked for audits, if you want to do that, or if you're negotiating, people kind of know who you are and know that you're legit without like, oh, this is, you know, Bob Jones and he went to this university. Like, I just don't see how that helps, in my view.
Yeah, I also love what you said about the meritocracy thing because there's no more meritocratic, you know, thing than bounty hunting or, you know, participating in competitions anonymously. You could be anybody. You could be from any background whatsoever and just do that. And, you know, you really can't use that card of like, I was oppressed by X, Y, and Z. It's because you don't even have to reveal any of those details when you get on. So, you know,
I'm waiting.
I say everyone should go for it.
If there's DEI in the audit competitions, then we got a problem. We've got a big problem. But I mean, so like with your background, you were a CS, you were definitely in tech before this, like deep.
100%. Yeah, I was a dev for many years, and you know, like, I don't mind sharing this. I mean, I started off. I mean, I always just loved computers. I was into computers before I went to university, and I sort of followed that track set down for me, which turned out to be a bad idea. But like, I went all the way to finishing a PhD. Would you believe? Which I then never ever used. And along the
In
way, I
what?
did come across a couple of cool things that most people don't come across. But
What was the PhD in? What was
right. So I was in computer science, and
Oh,
I was
gee.
interested in compilers, and I was really interested in the idea of like, how do you extend a programming language with like new syntax and new features without, like, in a kind of pluggable way, rather than just like rewriting big parts of this monolithic tool. Because I just thought it would be really cool if people could like experiment with compilers in a much more kind of plug and play thing, so they could like add new syntax, and then you could use that module if you wanted to kind of have like a marketplace of language features. But it turns out it's a big research topic, and I didn't get very far with it as an idea.
I think I'm gonna just feel dumb every guest that I have on here. Like my knowledge is like nowhere near yours. I think of that as the coolest thing I'd want to do, but I've never done it. I've never had formal training in computer science. I've never built my own compiler, but I've always thought that was the nerdiest, coolest thing to do. I don't think my brain is big enough.
Yeah, you'd probably surprise yourself. Like, it's like anything. If you find an interest in it, that's probably the biggest hurdle. And then a lot of this, yeah, you got to select good sources of information too. Because, like, personally, I actually hate reading academic papers, which sounds funny for a guy who's actually finished a PhD. Like, I just find them so dense and hard to get through. And I think it would be much better if people just communicated through blogs like we do. And, you know, like, our blogs are pretty technical. This just doesn't seem like that, because you can talk in a chatty tone and throw in, you know, cool metaphors, and you can do a whole bunch of things which just isn't allowed in the kind of academic tradition for
That's true.
bullshit conventional reasons. You know,
Yeah.
you know, there's no reason besides, oh, I just want to appear like I'm a serious person and I don't want to upset the apple cart.
I read my my balancer write up, and I thought it was so lame. Like, I reread it recently and I thought, my God, this is so boring. It's just so technical. And some write-ups are good that people do. But to be honest, I'll read other people's write-ups, and a lot of them are the same, just as bad as mine. And I think, man, who is reading this? Like, I had when I did the balancer one, I had my wife read it, and she's like, this is the most boring thing. I have no idea what you're talking about. And then I reread it, and I'm like, God, this is pretty nerdy. This is really nerdy. Even though it's not an academic paper, it's still like, it's pretty dry, man.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. You know, Shung did one on a Uniswap bug that he found, I think. And it was really entertaining because he created this like series of pictures for it, like it was a chat between two people, and that was meant to be like the system versus the user. And so, like, each action that the attacker took was like, you know, a little bit of text in a chat, and then it kind of explained it that way. And I thought that was really cool.
That'd be cool. I need to add some flair to my next one. That sounds cool.
Yeah.
So what about your 2024? Like, how was it for you for as far as bug hunting goes? Or were you doing audits? Like, you know, give me a.
I think I had a lack of focus in 2024, and I was kind of working out what I should do to get better. And so I did some private audits, and I feel that they actually detracted from my focus, and I ended up getting caught up in them quite a bit. Even just knowing that something was like scheduled in a few weeks sometimes made me feel constrained and hemmed in for bug hunting, bounty hunting, I should say. So I feel like I was scattered and all over the place in the first half of 2024. And then I guess things picked up in the second half. So I landed a bounty with Morpho. I have permission to talk about that yet, and the blog post is still coming.
As much as you want to disclose.
Oh, sure. Okay. I mean, that's a fun thing. So if you go to their risk documentation on their website, then you'll see there's a credit to me in there for basically they had to modify their risk documentation just a little bit to make people aware of a situation with, I guess, what you would call a nested vault. So in a lending vault, you have, I'll run through it.
Okay, go ahead.
So, yeah, this will take a couple of minutes though. So
Sure.
Strap yourselves in, listeners. So you have these lending vaults, and basically you've got to have LPs which stake some underlying token, and that's going to actually be lent out to borrowers. And in return for these deposits, the LPs get shares in this vault. And hopefully the value of those shares is going to go up over time as the borrowers pay interest back into the vault. I mean, that's really the incentive there. And you should make a return that way. But there is actually a way in which the value of your shares could drop. And that will happen if there's a delayed liquidation. So basically a liquidation that happened too late so that there is a small amount of insolvency in the vault, and therefore the price of your share goes down. And this is only true if the vault does something called bad debt socialization, which is basically just to share the hit amongst all the LPs that are in that vault. Okay, so that's some pretty basic kind of lending vault knowledge there. So it turns out that you can, in Morpho, you can actually lend out vault shares from another vault if you want to. And this is where things get a little bit dicey, because if there's a big price swing, it could be the case that a liquidator knows that the vault share price is going to lower in as soon as the liquidation is called. They just know because it's been delayed long enough now that they know that the price is going to instantaneously change. Now, maybe I'll use some concrete figures here. So let's say that the vault shares had gone up to 1.2 to 1, okay, over time. So it started out at 1 to 1, but it's gone up to 1.2 because of all the payments of interest that have come in. But because this liquidation is about to occur, which is late, there's going to be some bad debt socialization, and the value of the vault share is actually going to go down to 1.1 instantaneously. And you know this is going to happen. And it might only happen once every 3 years, when there's a huge price shock to some cryptocurrency or some token. Okay, so if you know this is going to happen and you have access to borrowing those vault shares, so this is like a nested vault which actually has the LPs actually stake vault shares from another vault in there. Well, what you could do is then you could borrow those shares and sell them at 1.2 for the underlying token, and then you could liquidate. The price goes down to 1.1, and now you have this debt of vault shares, but you buy them back at 1.1, and so you've made the profit difference between 1.2 and 1.1. So it's not it's not a bug per se in the sense that this is just something that you kind of have to keep in mind for when you create a vault and how to set it up. So basically submitted this to Morpho. They said this is a valid situation and people who are creating vaults should definitely know about this so that they can choose between whether to do bad debt socialization or use some other method to deal with late liquidations. And now they're aware of it, but they did actually reward us for it, which was great. So that was
all listeners now get a Coursera certificate on Morpho Vaults after listening to that.
Yeah.
So how did you come across this?
Well, okay, I guess just reading the code and thinking about the economics of it.
But was this when I say a lot of bug hunters, myself included, are always interested in how do you find the bugs? And so when you say you're reading the code, but why did you pick Morpho? How long had you been looking at it? Were you randomly just searching for patterns? Or were you going through line by line, contract by contract? Like, how are you doing it?
Right. This was definitely one that came very late in the piece, where I thought about the problem really deeply, and the eventual sort of flash of insight came rather suddenly out of the blue. But this was one of those ones that involved kind of understanding the system completely.
You're whiteboarding the whole thing?
No, it just happened in my head, really. But I don't not so much whiteboarding. I just type scenarios into a text editor a lot of the time. Just I'll say something like, user, LP stakes this much, user borrows this much, then price shock occurs, and then you just go through these kind of scenarios, and then eventually you get to it. I guess the insight in this one is that there are many different ways to short things, and I think it's worthwhile learning all of them. But lending is like a classic way in which things can be shorted, essentially. But there's many, many subtle ways to short things, and I'm always on the lookout for those. Because this is essentially what's going on here. You're shorting something, so you know that there's going to be a price movement, so you do something to your benefit before the price movement.
That's interesting. I found a bug in Dolomite a while back because they forked DYDX, and one of their contracts, and this is all disclosed and disabled now. So one of their contracts was a signed proxy contract that no one was using, but it was enabled as a global operator, so users could authenticate through it and then act on the main margin contract. And it had a simple EC recover bug where you could be the zero address, and so I was able to exploit that. But then the only exploitation I could do was basically cause the protocol to accrue bad debt, and I couldn't think of a way to amp it up to kind of maximize it more, or really like any second order effect after that. And I was kind of disappointed in that because I was thinking hard and hard and hard. Just it's before LLMs gave you other insight and more ideas, and I just couldn't think of any other scenario where it was like, okay, it's bad for the protocol, but why? Well, I just couldn't do much with it. So interesting to hear that on your end. I mean, you found a way to kind of to think about shorts, and that's cool. I mean, every situation is different. Like I said, my brain definitely smaller than yours.
Obviously, I looked around. Well, on that last comment, I'd definitely say that Dead Roses is a hard act to follow. So I listened to half of that podcast yesterday when I saw it was up. And I've got a lot of admiration for someone who can just find so many bugs and so consistently. And I'm also a little bit jealous that he's so young and doesn't have, the level of adult responsibilities that I do now. I struggle for every hour that I get to audit because I've got 2 young children, and it's literally just every hour of my day is taken up with something, and I just try and maximize the number of hours I can do auditing, but it is not even close to what I could have done if I'd discovered this in my 20s.
Oh, tell me about it.
But better late than never, right? The Chinese proverb that the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, the second best time to plant a tree is now. I just let that go through my head and think, well, Web3 security wasn't around when I was 20, so let's try and take advantage of it now. Let's not have too much in the way of regret.
It's a game for all ages. I was surprised when we met in Bangkok, at ETH Bangkok, that we were similar ages, which was cool to see. And then you introduced me to, I can't think of his name, someone else who I met who's also in the same age range, which is really cool because it is dominated. It feels like that sometimes by the younger guys. And we all know they just have all the time in the world to dominate. I mean, I'll drop this, just to roast myself. I don't do the competitions, right? I did one for Code Arena. I was invited to do it, and it was for Wildcat Protocol. And so who else is doing it with me? So Dead Roses is on there because he hears I'm doing it. So I'm like, all right. And literally I've done no competitions on Code Arena. And so I don't even know, like, it's a different mindset. Like when we search for bugs, it's criticals, highs, all that stuff. Okay, you have to really prove it. It's a different story when you're doing these competitions. So I'm looking and they say, oh, just report every finding. Okay, so I'm just reporting everything. And dude, I got creamed. Like I don't even know. It was like I was supposed to be a Zenith researcher, like a top tier, and I was just down there with the commoners, just down there. And he placed first. He got the only high findings. And he asked me, he's like, hey man, did you really go hard on that? I'm like, yeah, man, I spent 3-4 days going deep into it. And the contest was like 2 weeks. But I mean, after 3-4 days, like I'm kind of toasted on a code base sometimes. And so he's good. That's all I can say is he's really good, consistent. He beat me on that one. And it is what it is, But you got to watch out. These young guys eating our lunch.
Well, hopefully the pie's expanding.
It's forever expanding, and that's why I don't care, because there's so many contracts out there every day. How many contracts do you think hit the blockchain? My God. All right. Every chain, how many new contracts that aren't spam you think hit all chains combined each day?
Do you know this figure? Because I don't.
I have no idea. I just guess. What would you think? 1,000.
That's a great question.
2,000?
Yeah, I'd say it's thousands, but I mean, a lot of them would just
Thousands.
be people testing little small things and that kind of thing, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
How many of note hit the
contracts?
chain each day, right?
Yeah, how many are deployed right now? Just even on mainnet. I think it's probably like, I want to say 1 million. Maybe I'm totally wrong. But it seems like it's just a never-ending supply.
Yep, I know what you're saying.
It's incredible. So I don't worry about it. I don't worry about all these contests. I don't worry about people having audits. I think the pie is going to continue to grow. I mean, for all of us. So the more guys we can get doing it, hey, great, man. The cream rises to the top.
Yep. So I know this was meant to be a free-form conversation, but you did just remind me of something that I did want to talk about today.
Tell me,
which
what
was
do you got?
One thing I was surprised about in 2024 was how quickly things were starting to get centralized. It's like, and I even have a little metaphor to talk about this with. I don't know if you've ever watched Deadwood, the series about the gold mining town in the Wild West.
I've heard of it,
yeah.
Never watched.
Anyway, it's great, right? But basically, what happened was a bunch of people went out to the West, and when they first got to California, there was like gold nuggets just sitting in the river and stuff like that, right? So you could just go in there, like pick them up, and you'd be rich, right? And then the gold rush started, and everyone traveled across the country to like find all this gold. And so, that's well and truly happening in Web3 Sec already, like to me, that's what Code Arena was when I first found it. I was like, oh yeah, there's gold nuggets sitting in the stream here. This is great. I felt even a bit late then. And then, I think there has been a big gold rush, but there's this point in Deadwood in the series where this industrialist turns up, and he's like, everyone's in there with their like little pickaxes and stuff on their own little plots and stuff. And he just rocks up, and he's got like all this machinery because he's got lots of capital. and he's got all this machinery, and he just starts mining for the gold and basically eating everyone's lunch that way. And I feel that the big platforms are actually I think that's what happened with the big platforms. Like, whether that's good or bad, all the competitive audit platforms have, basically started trying to snap up a lot of talent by offering various inducements of various kinds, right? And that kind of binds you to working for them. And I guess I might just have to, we might have to just suck that up and join them, or, we might try and remain fiercely independent. But I think it was much easier to be independent even as early ago as 2023 than it is now.
You mean as an auditor?
Definitely as an auditor. And I don't think it's happened yet for bounty hunting, but perhaps there is some way in which that becomes more centralized. At the moment, I think that's what the appeal is, because I think I've been employed long enough in my life, and I like being a lone wanderer and just sort of hunting on things that I want to, and so on. Preferably without, too much time pressure or feeling of competition breathing down my neck. Yeah.
What about regarding the centralization about for the bug bounties? You could say ImmuneFi really kind of cornered that market. I mean, they probably host, I think, more than anybody else. But as far as centralization, I mean, they're all hosted on there, so it kind of makes you funnel through there in a way. Good and bad aspects of that.
Yep.
The auditing with the contests and all that, I feel like, and I've seen it, you could still make a name for yourself as an independent auditor if that's your gig, by just building your brand and doing the independent audits. And I think guys like Bytes 32, he made that Find audit tool, runs a Telegram group, all that stuff to connect people with just the best auditor for the price and independent guys. I think that's really cool to kind of take market share away from the big shops.
Yeah, I think there'll always be.
That? No.
Sorry, what was that?
Have you seen his Find audit site?
Yeah, no, I have. I think it's great.
Okay.
Yeah. I think I saw his first announcement of that on X. Yeah.
Yeah, there's just such a big pie. I think if you want it and you're willing to do it, then it's there. Like, the money's there, the work's there. And I agree with you on time pressure too. Like, that's one of the reasons I like just not doing audits or anything, because, you're boxed in for a week, you have some results to deliver. And bounty hunting, you could just, be your own boss and work on some bug that turns out to waste your entire week instead. And
yeah, it often does.
Nothing. Yeah, like a fucking idiot. But what do you do?
Yeah, and I think another thing that attracts me to bounty hunting is this distinction between honing and forging. So I got this from a science fiction author called Neil Stevenson, but I just love the idea. So he talks about the difference between, like, I guess, cultures that forge, which is discover something. I think also Peter Thiel's got this idea as well, going from 0 to 1. He's got a book called From 0 to 1. And the idea is that, like, forging is actually much, much harder than honing. So honing is just like improving something that already exists. And so, like, AI was forged by the people who discovered LLMs, right? And I guess that's OpenAI, the first ones to really, like, capitalize on that. And now you've got all these other market players, and they're the ones that are honing it. Yeah. And then if you look at the USA is, like, basically forged most of the important technologies of, like, the 20th and the 21st century, whereas other countries and so on are more in the sort of honing business, where they take an idea and they actually make it better than it was before, but they're just honing it. Like, think of Japanese cars, for instance. It's like they worked out really great ways to manufacture it, but it's not like they invented the car. So now, I know that was a bit of a long-winded intro, I'm in this business because I want to forge some bugs, like whole new classes of bugs.
While using Forge.
While using Forge.
Joke.
That's very nice. Yeah. But yeah, I want to be the first to discover a certain class of bugs. I just think I just prefer to be that person rather than
that's the Holy Grail, man.
Becoming the expert
that's our
in
Holy Grail.
finding a certain class of bugs, or becoming an expert in finding lots and lots of different kinds of bugs. I think they're a different skill set, and that's what I'm in the business for. So I think that's going to mean that there's going to be more time between findings for me, because that's kind of what I'm focused on.
I respect that a lot, and I know the commitment that takes, and it really takes your time, because you have to go so deep and think so outside the box, and it usually leads to nothing. But I totally respect that. I also have that goal to find something that is a new class of bug and that no one's thought of. Like, it's so cool, a new pattern or just something unique is always, I think it's what we strive for. Really cool.
100%.
Let me kind of ask, because I love to hear everyone's methods on this. My method is very different than yours, I'm sure. When you say, hey, I'm opening up the computer, I have no current projects I'm looking at, how do I find a target? How do you find your bugs?
I'm refining this, but there are definitely some like really obvious first steps, which probably everybody does. It's like, look at Immunify, look at some other platforms, but then also look at DeFi Llama. It can be really cool to track how things change over time. Like, just a quick example, I remember I was looking at Pendle when it only had a 250k bounty on Immunify, and then I was just like tracking it on DeFi Llama, and it just had this explosion of TVL, like early 2024. Now it's got like billions of dollars of TVL, and then consequently they put their bounty up to like 2 million, I think, and that's on Cantina now. That's hosted there. That's an interesting thing to do. Like, is just look at DeFi Llama, because sometimes, although they don't have a bug bounty program on Immunify, if you find a drain all the funds bug, they're going to reward you for that. Anything less, maybe not, if you don't have a bug bounty program. But you might hit it big that way.
It's the same thing Dead Roses said. He goes on DeFi Llama. I should try that more.
It's just fun to track it there. Yeah, it's got a really nice interface.
Yeah, those guys are great. Llamas. Shout out to the llamas, whoever they are.
Agreed. Sorry, what else did you, I forgot the rest of the question. Oh yeah, what do I do when I open up the computer?
Yeah, okay. You open it up, you have nothing to look. You have no bugs in queue, like no ideas. Yeah. Like, how do you're starting fresh. What do you do? Besides go to DeFi Llama.
That's me. That gets me heaps of like potentials. But then the next thing I love to do is just jump on the Discord. So like, see how much traffic is going on there, and then just read through some of the comments. Like,
on where? Which Discord?
Sorry, the Discords for all the projects that I've just made a short list
Discord hunter. I see.
Yeah, I feel like you can learn a lot about just the general vibe of a project from doing that. And you can like search for key phrases. Like, one obvious one would be bounty. And then you see if they actually do have a bounty program or not. And then usually a lot of them will say, no, we don't have one, but we've been known to pay out bugs if they're good. And you're like, oh, okay, I guess I could do that. That's actually what I did for Kyber originally, so that was how I discovered that they'd actually paid out before, even though they didn't have a bounty program. That was cool. Yeah, so that's sort of something I do. The other thing is, if a project is live, studying Etherscan can just be a good thing to do. Start looking at their contracts and just look at.
Now you're speaking my language.
Yeah,
you mentioned
I love Etherscan. It's great.
The best.
It's not the greatest interface in the world, but it's got some very powerful features hidden amongst there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you ever use Parsec?
I have not. No.
It is like if Etherscan is down, you could pull up parsec.fi, and they launched, I want to say, a year ago, and they tried to kind of capture some of the momentum from Etherscan. And maybe they do. I don't use it. I tried it a few times. It looks pretty good. You just have to get used to it, but definitely keep it as a backup when Etherscan goes down, and just something else to try out. They might actually have some features you might like.
Yeah. There's another tool that I did actually get some use out of, which was Codeslaw.
Oh, I love Codeslaw.
Because if you find a bug in one project, you can just see if it exists somewhere else as well.
There's a caveat with Codeslaw, though, is I talked to the guy who made it in their Telegram. They don't index everything. He's got some sort of algorithm where they index some of the most popular contracts. So if it's like, it won't search anything, like the entire blockchain. That's the problem. But it does find a lot of decent matches, I'd say.
Yeah.
But if you've used the one by I think it's by the Hexens guys, Glider.
No, I haven't used that one either.
Are you aware of it yet?
I honestly couldn't tell you what it is at the moment.
It allows you. They built it solely to search for patterns in contracts, and it searches everything. It searches the entire chain. I think they have it on multiple chains now, but they built their own. It's like I think it's a Python style language, and you can create your own queries, and you could say, hey, I want to search for functions without a non-reentrant modifier, and then it'll let you go into the function and say, okay, and then I want to look for these variables being set to this. Like, you can get very specific. The barrier is you need to learn the syntax, or maybe train an LLM on the syntax and have it help you. And there's a lot of false positives, but if you're willing to put the time in, I think this is an alpha drop. The remedy.
Now that you've explained it, I have actually played around with it, and it looks useful. Yeah.
I haven't.
And I will totally remember to use that in future. I mean, I just took some notes right then. That's another important thing: note taking. That's something I do a lot, and I do read over them too occasionally as well, because you can't just take the notes; you got to read them as well.
How big is your notes file?
Oh man, it's huge.
and what is it called? Is it notes.txt or notes.md?
It is organized into directories, right? There's folders, and there's multiple notes.md. I use Markdown exclusively pretty much for my note taking, so they're all .md files.
Beast.
Yeah.
That's
awesome.
Yeah,
it's like just plain text. It's great. You can search it. It doesn't, and it's going to remain compatible with a bunch of tools into the future. It kind of future-proofs
I don't use Notion, or I don't use anything. It's just notes.md. That's all I need.
Yeah.
It has every single bug note in there. Giant file of all kinds of shit. All right,
I did do a word count recently, and I was like, that's a lot of words, man.
Well, some of the shit is probably really outdated too, or like
100%.
dead end
It's
bugs.
Yeah. You can't say it's all valuable, but I am actually keeping notes for an eventual set of memoirs that I'll write once I leave the space. Because, there's a lot of stuff you just can't talk about right now, but in maybe 5 years I can talk about it, because, you've got certain obligations to people, and certain stuff is sensitive, and you don't want to burn people or anything like that. So, I keep a lot of notes, and one day there'll be a tell-all book that I write.
In your memoirs. Oh, this is something unique. No one's going to do that. Only you.
Well, now I've given away the alpha, so maybe everyone's going to do it.
I would read it, man. That'd be awesome. Dude, I really want to drop this alpha drop again. So I had this, I brought it up to you, I wanted to start this part of the podcast. We'll put it in randomly, I think. But I want to have this little alpha drop where hopefully I share something, and then the guest shares something that's just something that could help people find some bugs that come from that notes.md file.
100%.
So I'll start. So I picked one, and this is kind of a cool thing that I found some bugs on recently. So this is hot, glowing hot alpha, is what I call breaking the chain. So I explore, a bunch of transactions, contracts everywhere. And what I was looking for was, instead of, usual ones where max critical, this and that. I said, hey, what about where could denial of service bugs lead to? And so I started looking through the traces of just different transactions that I found interesting. And if you look through the trace and see where other contracts that it calls. So just look for every call within a large trace and then say, well, can I break this? Can I break the trace and call that contract directly? Like, is this permissioned? Can I take the same parameters? Maybe it was a proof. Maybe it was something that first call gave to it. Can I take that and modify it? Or can I front run it and then do a denial of service or something like that? And that's turned up quite a few things. So that's my alpha drop, breaking the chain. Check the long traces and look for the calls in there and see what you can do with them. All right, give me yours. What do you got?
Wow, that's a really good one. And I wish I had like a specific alpha drop like that right now. So I maybe misunderstood your question, and I've kind of got
just
like
say zero address.
I've got 4 bits of like high level advice that I think you wouldn't
That'll
hear
work
elsewhere.
Do it.
And so these ones are more to do with being a bounty hunter than being a competitive auditor. Okay,
dude, that's alpha too. It's good.
Yeah,
drop it.
Okay, so the first one is that I think there's a rich vein to be mined in studying literature on testing, which has been done. Like, turns out there's a lot more of it out there than you would think. And turns out that people were kind of doing the stuff we're doing like 20 years ago at Microsoft and other institutions like that. There's even books on it. And I would just say, like, have a look out there for any book or blog post that you can find on manual testing rather than automated testing, because the manual testing seems to be much more akin to what we do as bounty hunters, meaning that it's not just unit tests. Like every project's got unit test suites, but manual testing is all about getting in there and just having a human in the loop that tries to break things. And I was kind of surprised that there's actually a whole bunch of books out there with some really good advice. And one author that I've looked at already is James Whitaker. So just look that guy up, have a look what books you can find or blog posts, and just have a quick read on that. Now, the other one, I'm still learning this one. I don't think I've got the answers on this yet, but I think that negotiation skills are like a key skill that bounty hunters need. Mm-hmm. And I reckon I've made all the mistakes. Like, I reckon I've appeared really needy. I reckon I've used language that was a bit, fiery, all that kind of stuff. I haven't been really learning about the psychology of these, of the people behind the projects. I think I've just been, kind of like a lawyer, thinking like a lawyer, or just being autistic about it, thinking, if I can just show you where you said in your own bug bounty program that you would pay out for this bug, then you'll of course agree with me. But that's just not how it works. Like, people are people, and you probably want to use some kind of psychological techniques to try and convince people to your side. So I'm still learning this. I don't know how it's going to be done, but that's something I'm really interested in looking at in 2025. Like, I'm thinking about it quite a lot, and I'm watching some YouTube videos about it and just trying to get ideas about it.
That's very, very good. I like that.
Now, the next one is I'm not saying do this all the time, but maybe team up with a partner to do some bounty hunting. I think I've been doing that with a bounty hunting partner. I haven't got his permission to talk about it. I just didn't even ask him, so I'll just leave his name out for the moment. But,
and this is a gentleman I met in Bangkok, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, so that's been fun, and it actually makes me more motivated because you kind of got someone to bounce ideas off, and also you do feel a little bit competitive with them as well, which can be good in small doses. But the one really good thing that came out of it was that we set up a Discord server to discuss all our leads. And that has the added benefit of forcing you to write your ideas down and communicate them to someone else. And you'd be surprised how much more stuff you come up with while you're actually writing stuff down and explaining it. And second, that server now contains a whole bunch of documentation, more than you'd normally take when you're just doing bounty hunting by yourself. At least that was true for me. So that's my third bit of alpha, is that like if you're working with someone, you get the added benefit of like communicating in written form, which forces you to think more clearly, and you get the documentation. And that's my 3 bits of alpha for today. Maybe I'll come up with some more on the fly later.
No, very good. I like the third. I still haven't worked with anyone with any bug hunts, but I know it's probably beneficial. I just prefer this completely unstructured kind of thing. Maybe if I worked with someone who also was like, hey, I'm not going to check into the Discord for 3 days and don't worry about it. Maybe then it would work, because that's kind of how I
totally
roll.
I mean, I'm not saying I would do it all the time, but so far I've enjoyed it so much that I'm going to keep doing it for a while longer.
I wanted to touch on negotiations. I think that's a great topic. So I'll sum up. Everyone wants to save their money to go and take a college economics course. I actually liked the course in negotiations, and the two things that I took away from it were, one was this thing called an anchor price, if you heard of negotiations, which is basically you start the negotiation, and wherever someone throws that first number is kind of mentally where the other guy puts that number. So if you're buying a car, say, hey, I'll offer you 5 and the thing's worth 15, that guy is going to say, what the hell is this guy lowballing me? And you can't give a lowball, or else he might just dismiss you, but it has to be in a certain range where he says, oh, maybe it's not worth 15, maybe it's worth 5. But now he's thinking around that 5, and his counteroffer will hopefully be around that number. So same things with negotiating your bounty, same principles apply. And the other thing is, it's called BATNA, Best Alternative to a Negotiated Agreement. So as one of the counterparties to, say, a bug bounty negotiation, when you're talking to a team on Twitter or through ImmuneFi, and you say, okay, well, what is my best alternative? If I can't get an agreement with these people, what's my alternative? Can I just say, hey, well, you have no bounty? Well, I'm not going to bother disclosing to you. I did a lot of work on this bug. You guys can find it on your own. That's it. Maybe that's your best alternative, but you need to know these things going in, so that way you can kind of structure the negotiation in your favor and not be prone to giving away too much for no money, perhaps, whatever it is. And another thing with negotiation, and it's happened to me recently, like say you get into a Twitter group, not a Twitter group, Telegram group with the parties, the devs, everyone, and you're about to disclose a bug, you kind of have to strategically hold things back until you can get some sort of assurance, whatever that is for you, that, hey, they're going to, they have a bounty program, they're going to reward you or something. Because why are you doing it? It's for the sake of the industry, great. Are you doing it to eat? Great. Whatever your motivations are, make sure those are met. If you just want to spend all your time hunting bounties and just reporting them for nothing and say, hey, don't reward me, great. That's great. Whatever you want to do, it's very altruistic. But if you want to get paid, you have no obligation. This may be a point many don't agree with, but you have no obligation to disclose anything. If you find something and then the other party says, hey, we're not going to pay you, but we're going to fix it. Thanks. Fuck off. Well, you may have spent weeks on that. And now what? You've made the ecosystem safer, or, what's the reward for you? So I feel a different way on that. I don't know about you. What do you think?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'd say my views on this have changed a little bit. So, I still have some bright lines in the sand, like not wanting to, I'll never take part in a white hack unless, I've been given permission to do so. But I think I'm re-examining some other things, and there's no doubt about it that you lose all your leverage the moment you disclose your report completely to someone else. And there's nothing you can do if they decide to pay you nothing, like a lowball amount, or just ignore you and do nothing about it, or drag out the payment process for 3 months or something like that. There's nothing really you can do about that. So this leverage problem is one that needs to be solved. And what I heard from your comment there was that, like, well, perhaps you don't even give away that leverage in the first place. Like, I personally would feel, I personally think that you could run afoul of like extortion laws in various districts if you say, I must be paid for this. But you could ask for other things, like, I want a direct line of communication. I want everything answered within, a timely manner, like 12 hours, 24 hours. Ignoring, communication for longer than that is unacceptable. Perhaps you could even ask whether you could disclose via an audio call, so that you kind of, that might be beneficial to them. That might allow them to like have a quick debate with you about the impact, and you can explain it to them nice and quick. And also you get like a sense for what the project's like. I don't know, but what I'm saying is, yeah, although I wouldn't necessarily say you must pay me if I disclose this, because you could run afoul of like,
Right.
Right.
You want to do it all
things, but you do
legally.
want to be treated fairly, and so you could ask for other non-monetary things, I think, in advance.
Let me ask you this, because this is a real scenario, and this is why my thinking on this has changed. So I found a bug, and this is still ongoing, right? I found a bug, and I put it out on Twitter. I said, hey, there's a $40 million drain. And I said, is it worth more or less than 3,000? Because that's what they offered. And I was like, you fucking kidding me? And because this is what I did, I disclosed the full thing, just like always. And I'm like, hey, this is just, it's the right thing to do, right? So I disclosed everything. And then they're like, hey, yeah, $3,000. Okay. So we eventually put it up to 10. And I'm like, okay. And then I found another bug with these guys. And now it was a $250 million drain. These are big numbers, huge numbers.
It's hard to believe that anyone would.
It's crazy. This space is absolutely crazy. And so I'm like, well, I'm not disclosing it to you. I said, we need to come to some sort of agreement that I would be compensated on some sort of normal scale or something if the finding is, it's like you're saying, you don't want to do there's no extortion. Like if I found something, I don't have to report shit to anybody, and I just did it with these guys and they pay me a pittance. So I'd rather just not say anything and I'll just not report it if you're not willing to be fair about the whole thing. So that's the predicament that I'm in, that I'm kind of frustrated with. And I really don't know how to proceed. And I don't think they know how to proceed, but I'm not just going to work for free, and I'll just hold on to the finding and just keep it by my side. You can go have someone else find it.
Yeah, a lot of people have kind of a fairly extreme view that, that a lot of stuff should be done for the good of the space, out of, pure altruism or whatever. But I don't believe altruism scales, right? And I personally believe that the best thing that humans have done is organized societies in such ways that private, what am I looking for? Personal level good outcomes are aligned with societal good outcomes. It's the ultimate win-win. And I believe that those things, that does actually scale, basically. So like the free market is just an example of that, right? Both people, if they're really know what they're exchanging the goods for, they're both coming out better on the other side of that trade, right? And I mean, countries that have free markets are a lot richer than countries that don't. So you can just see there where it's like personal gain is aligned with societal gain. And in the case of Web3sec, I think introducing reward and money for disclosing bugs has actually been a good thing for security overall.
Absolutely.
And I think it's been way better than if we didn't have that and we just relied on people's goodwill. It just wouldn't happen nearly as often.
No.
I mean,
people operate off incentives.
You literally couldn't do the job because you'd have to have another job on the side. So you'd, you know what I mean? You wouldn't have as much time to do it. Everyone needs to eat.
Exactly. It's a difficult topic to discuss because I think people say things in public that they don't actually believe in private, or if they're doing those things in private. But I like to give people the benefit of the doubt. Anyone that I deal with, I try to get an assurance like, hey, am I talking to the right guy? Do you have a bounty program? Like, I just like to put that out there. And then 99% of the time, oh, hey, yeah, we reward appropriately, this and that. Okay, great. Just not that, hey, expect someone to do all this work for free for you. That's not how it works.
Yeah. I've had another couple of ideas as well around how we could improve things for white hats. But I don't know if either of them would work, So one was, what if there was like an organization, almost like a white hat union, that just would basically put out negative PR for every time somebody got lowballed. So it's not like just like having the bug
wall of shame.
What was it? Bug bounty wall of shame. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which was a great idea, but it's what's different about it is it's that plus like a dedicated group of people that are like willing to like put out PR about it. More,
an intern,
not just at the time that it happens,
posting.
but they do it. They do it. They have retrospectives every so often, like top 10 worst ones that happened in the last 6 months, for instance. That kind of thing. And how would you pay these people? My thought was that white hats who benefited from it could pay them a small amount of the money, their bounties for that kind of thing. If anything, if there were any good outcomes, they could pay them some money so that they could actually put out that PR on a regular basis.
You could even have just have a cron job, or I'm sorry, AI agent.
Yes, you could do that.
You could have an AI agent just tweet out, just keep rehashing, all the info.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess the second idea I had was like, well, review sites seem to have worked really well for like Google, Amazon, Uber, and so on, And it really seems to actually improve people's behavior. Like, remember how bad taxis were before Uber?
Oh yeah.
But for some reason, getting complete strangers to drive you around actually works better. It's cleaner. It's a nicer experience,
People knock
and all
on
because you have
credit
this
scores.
review thing. Oh, sorry, what was that?
No, I say people knock on social credit scores, but really they're already in place. If you're going to rent your house out via Airbnb, or if you're going to offer a passenger a ride in the Uber, everyone has ratings, and you're not going to pick up the guy who's got a 2-star rating because whatever happened in the last ride. I mean, it sucks, but when you're on the other side of that, sometimes it's really good.
It's good to be intellectually honest about social credit systems. I've always wondered what's actually going on in China when they talk about how terrible these social credit systems are. Not that I'm like pro or against it. I just would like to know more about what's actually going on there and whether I've just been, sold some propaganda.
I think
it would be so easy.
I like them, but not everywhere. It can't be. It can't be everywhere. That's just. That's like Australia. No, Australia will be. I think selectively where you can opt in. Like if I'm going to use Uber, I know they're going to be ratings. But China, I mean, they're they just go full bore with everything.
Right. They can actually keep you in your district, and not allow you to travel if your social credit's bad enough. That is pretty authoritarian, and or can already draw the line on that at first.
I think I don't want the government to do social credit scoring. Maybe if the government's not in, because then I can opt in or opt out to. I mean, we have it with credit scores and financial credit scores, this and that. But the government doing it, they'll just fuck it all up and turn into some tyrannical, crazy place.
Yeah, most likely.
Yeah. Oh man. Anything else, Mr. Proof? We made it to 1 hour.
Ah, fantastic. I mean, this could be a good spot to stop. Yeah, there's one more thing I want to do. I want to give a shout out to X, who calls himself Korok, and so that's Korok. And I'm just interested to follow his experiment on trying to solve the loss of leverage problem that we bounty hunters have.
Shout out to Korok. Met him as well. Yeah. Very smart guy.
Yeah, I just think, I mean, I'm not saying it's going to work, but I think his ideas are worth looking at. I mean, first of all, he just wants to have everything on chain so that, it's public rather than private, and that's transparency is always a good thing. And then he's just going to he's trying to build an on-chain justice system, which at first sounds like, how could that possibly work? But people forget that like cryptocurrency itself is not just code. Its success relies on the people who are interested in it. If no one was interested in the code, then it wouldn't be worth anything. So everyone's got to agree that it's fair. The code's fair, and if you can come up with some kind of on-chain justice system, that could be kind of cool. I want to see how that goes.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we'll have to stay on it. Korok, we're watching.
Yep. Eyes
cool,
on.
Man. Well, thank you for coming on. Appreciate it. And maybe I'll see you at the next ETH event.
Yep, hopefully.
Yeah.
Definitely want to hang out with you again sometime. It was too short last time.
Yeah. All right, brother. Well, good talking. I'll see you on the blockchain.